All right, graphing systems of equations. Everybody should have their paper ready, something to write with so you can take notes. The first equation is 6x plus 2y equals 10. We're going to do a t-table. Okay, when you're doing a t-table, 0 is always a number that you want to use. Okay, the other number that you want to use is, if it's written in this form, it's called standard form. If it's written in this form, you want to use the number in front of y. If there isn't a number in front of y, that's 1. If there's a number in front of y, that is the next best choice usually to use. So in this problem for my t-table, I'm going to use 0, 2. When I substituted 0 in, my 6x becomes 0 because 6 times 0 is 0. So all that is left is 2y equals 10. You divide both sides by 2, and you get y equals 5. So when I put 0 in, I get 5. Again, when I put 0 in, I get 5. When I put a 2 in for my equation, then 2 times 6 is 12, so I end up with 12 plus 2y equals 10. I need to subtract 12 from both sides. This is a two-step equation now. There's going to be two things you're going to do. You're either going to add or subtract first, and then all of these, the last thing that you're going to do is divide. So you're going to subtract 12, so you get 2y equals 10 minus 12 is a negative 2. Just like before when I substituted 0, the last thing we did was divide by 2. And again, last thing I'm going to do here is divide by 2. So we get y equals a negative 1. So y will equal a negative 1. That is our blue line. From there, you would graph the blue line at 0, 5 here, and at 2, negative 1 there. And then obviously when you're doing this live on Khan Academy, it moves your line and you have your line drawn. Okay? After you get done with your blue equation, you then now do the green equation. Okay? So I'm going to rewrite everything here. 3x minus 2y equals 8. My t-table, 0 always is going to work. And I have a negative 2 in front of y, so I'm going to use 2. So the values I'm going to substitute in for my equation are 0 and 2. When I put a 0 in for the x, I get 3 times 0 minus 2y equals 8. That leaves me with a negative 2y equals 8. Just on the previous 2 times, the last thing we did was divide by 2. Here we will divide by a negative 2. So I get y equals negative 4. So when I substitute a 0 in, I get a negative 4. Next, I substitute my 2 in for x. So I have 3 times 2 minus 2y equals 8. That is going to be 6 minus 2y equals 8. This is a two-step equation, something that you were supposed to have mastered last quarter. You're going to subtract 6, so you're left with a negative 2y equals 2. And then we divide by a negative 2 on both sides. Negative 2, we get y equals a negative 1. So we'll get the ordered pair 2, negative 1. You graph them, 0, negative 4 would be down here, and 2, negative 1 is going to be on our blue dot there. And if I had this set up right, that's what it's going to look like when you have done on Khan Academy. Your two lines are going to cross. The solution is the intersection. If the intersection is not perfect, you made a mistake. Whether you made a mistake in your calculations or made a mistake in your graphing, it could be either one. But if it is not perfect, if it does not cross exactly where it needs to cross on those gray lines, then you made a mistake. So you want to go back. There's not going to be any halves. Anyways, your answer then is your x is going to equal 2, and your y is going to equal a negative 1. So your final answer would be the 2, negative 1. You have to have your graph right, and you have to have the numbers right to get it right on Khan Academy. Okay? If you mess up on your graph, it's not going to count it right. Let's look at another problem. Another problem, okay, we do the same process. You're going to do the same thing again. So the first equation is 12x plus 8y equals 32. My t-table, I'm going to go 0, and it is an 8y, so I'm going to use 8. Okay? You could use 2, because that'll give you 24 here. Okay? But I'm going to use 8, show you what happens, and then you might have to come back and make adjustments. So, when we substitute a 0 in, 12 times 0 is 0. So, I am left with 8y equals 32. Divide both sides by 8. Y equals 4. So your ordered pair will be 0, 4. When you substitute the 8, you're going to get 8 times 12. And 8 times 12 is 96. You will subtract the 96 from both sides. So you're left with 8y equals, let's do it over here, 96 minus 32, 64. So that will be a negative 64. Again, you do that on calculator. And then divide both sides by 8. Divide by 8, divide by 8. Y equals a negative 8. So at 8, you get a negative 8. Those are your 2 points. You graph those 2 points. Then you go to your other equation, which is the green equation in this problem. Actually, in all of them. First one will be blue. Second one will be green. Start off with 2x minus 8y equals 24. T-table, 0. And then I'm going to use the 8 again because the 8 is in front of the y. Substitute the 0 in, I get 0. So it's a negative 8y equals 24. Divide both sides by a negative 8, and you get a negative 3. So here you get y equals negative 3. When I substitute my 8 in, 8 times 2 is 16, so I'm going to have 16 minus 8y equals 24. Again, two-step equation. I'm going to subtract my 16 from both sides. So I'm left with a negative 8y, and 24 minus 16 is 8. Then I divide both sides by a negative 8. And I get y equals negative 1. So at 8, you get a negative 1. One of the things you'll notice as you do these problems, you're not going to get fractions. Okay? Over here, you should not get any fractions. If you are getting fractions, use different numbers or do your calculations over. After you graph those 2 points, this is what it will look like. Now, it doesn't always work out that your dots, like here, these 2 dots are there, but my green dot is on my blue line. That will not always work out that way, okay? Sometimes it just intersects in a random spot. Doesn't have to be there. But anyways, this is your solution. Where the 2 lines cross, that is your solution. So my x is going to equal 4, and my y is going to equal a negative 2. Let's do, I think I have one more here. Let's do one more. And I missed the work on this one, but we'll do it. I already have the answer. Okay, so the blue equation, we have a negative 14x plus 2y is equal to 4. My t-table is going to be 0 and 2. The number in front of y is 2. Okay? When I substitute 0 in for my x, that gives me 0 there. So I'm left with 2y equals 4. And hopefully you're getting the pattern down. We've been doing a bunch of these. You will then divide both sides by 2. And you get y equals a negative 2. So at 0, you will have that's a positive 2. That will be 0, 2. 0, 2. Okay? Then we do the second value. We substitute a 2 into the equation, so it'll be a negative 14 times 2 plus 2y equals 4. The negative 14 times 2 is negative 28 plus 2y equals 4. I am going to add 28. When I add my 28, I get y equals 32. Divide both sides by 2, and I get y equals 16. We have a minor problem, and that is there isn't 16 fitting on our graph. And this is going to happen when you're doing your problems. You're going to go through everything, you're going to do everything right, and you end up with a value or an ordered pair that doesn't fit on the graph. So then you have to rethink what value you want to put in for x. Okay, you could go back and try 1. You could try a negative 1 or a negative 2 value. Okay, if you look at our current graph, it kind of gives it away. You can use 1. So then you substitute 1 in. And when you substitute 1 in, you get a negative 14 plus 2y equals 4. Add 14 to both sides. So you're left with 2y equals 18. And then divide by 2, y equals 9. So at 1, I get 9. So I have my ordered pair 0, 2 and 1, 9. Once you graph them, you then go to your green equation. The green equation is y equals 3x minus 2. Now, this is a lot easier when it's set up this way. It's a lot easier to figure out your ordered pairs. Okay? When you substitute, well, I didn't do that part yet. So my values I'm going to use are 0 and 1. Okay? If the 3 happens to be a fraction, use your denominator as one of your input values for x. Okay? If it's not a fraction, if it's a whole number, you can just use 0 and 1. So 0 in, when I put 0 in, I get y equals 0 minus 2. So it's a negative 2. Again, a lot easier. When I put a 1 in, it'll be y equals 3 times 1 minus 2, which is 3 minus 2, which is 1. Graph your 2 points. 0, negative 2 here, and your 1, 1 there, and your intersection will be down there. So your x is going to equal a negative 1. Your y will equal a negative 5. There are more. I'm not going to go through them. I want you to have some work time. Anybody have any questions